It's a poison. That doesn't help the stress level. No, don't do it. Get a grip. This stupid video I just showed you. I almost stroked out and died over it. You're watching a different show. You donkey. You ain't a captain of nothing but a sinking ship. Don't do this to me, Harry. The Ohio State. It's Ohio State. What do you mean, the? 312-988-15.
Hello?
You tell Johnny all you've heard and seen. Sometimes it's good to just yell about football. Yeah, that's right. I gotta tell you guys, man, I needed a laugh. It has been a long ride since this title game flop, and I needed a laugh. And just seeing the back and forth regarding all of these potential hires or not, and all the rumors and what happened, and whose story you're believing, and who left because of why, and who we're going after because of why. It is just, I'm telling you, I needed the laugh. This chat is hilarious. Mark with glasses is on fire. He's mad already. Nothing's happened yet. He said he's going to be booing at the blue and gold game. I could just picture Mark in that 80% empty stadium and Mark standing up. Boo! Get it together. You suck. Oh my God, you guys, I needed that, man. I understand it's stressful, and I understand nobody's in the mood for like uncertainty. And like, I just, Anthony, did you get sad and cut off all your facial hair? I certainly did. It has been growing out when I was just worried about the game and everything, and I wasn't worried about any of that stuff. And then I'm like, you know what? I need to get my mind right, change the calendar, start thinking of the future. Wasn't it Mike Ditka said the past is for cowards and losers or something? And so we're having a fresh start. We're having a fresh start. Pat, you know why that is? Good for Pat. He's in California golf, and I think he still is. John looks 10 years. You know why it is? When I grow out the facial hair and the beard, it's white and gray, and I think it makes me look a lot older. I think that's the problem. When it grows out, it's white and gray, and that makes makes me look a lot older. So change, you guys. You know what they say. Change is unlike a recent championship winning coach, John doesn't dye his beard. Au natural, baby. You know what they say. Change is the only constant in life and in football too. Here's what I think is going on. I'm going to get through the chats. We have some callers here, and we're going to go ahead and talk to them. Here's what I think is going on. Everybody's in a bad mood about how the season ended. Everybody's in a bad mood about how the season ended. And you're all stressed out or whatever. Another month of high-profile, stressful games and all this stuff. And then it ends in a very frustrating manner. And then right after that, you have no time to process anything. And all these big changes get dumped on you. Okay, the GM thing, the DC thing, like players leaving, whatever. I just personally feel like it's just a lot coming off of that emotional roller coaster and emotional low to end the year. Because if you think about it, all these major programs, right after their season ends, they go through a cycle of coaches coming and going, players coming and going. They all go through that. But I just think the timing of it, coming off of the negative experience against Ohio State, where everybody's got a bad taste in their mouth, to end it, I just feel like that has people in a really, bad mood, and nobody's open to anything. And the other thing is too. Here's the other thing too. It's not unique to Notre Dame, but you take it personal when it's Notre Dame. And I just feel like nobody's in the mood to process all of these changes while you're trying to grieve and get over the Ohio State loss. So I just think all this stuff is fairly natural for these big football programs. It's just we're a month delayed on all this from a lot of teams because you played in the last game of the year. And it's just nobody's in the mood for instability right now or whatever. Like, nobody's in the mood for it. Everybody's on edge. Here's the other thing, too. The other part of this is, and I've been doing this for a while now, I have some sources, and unlike some people, I'm going to admit, some of my people are players' parents. And that is good to get information from, but also, you got to take into account a lot of what you're getting then is from that kid's perspective that he tells dad about what the vibe is or whatever. The dad isn't in the locker room, right? So I admit that, but my point with this is, and listen, I appreciate the guys that'll shoot me a text and go, hey, this is going on, or this is the vibe or whatever. I'm just saying, I take that information with not a grain of salt, but I have to understand that the information's probably coming from, if it's coming from a dad, it's probably framed in a way through that kid's experience. And you just have to consider that when you're making a narrative, and that's like where a lot of your information's coming from. So that's interesting, and I appreciate some of the tidbits I get. But I always understand it's like there's probably another side to this. Where I'm going with that is there's a lot of conflicting information. And this happened last year too. And the year before that, like whenever you end up like this and you have these changes, you're getting a bunch of different people that say they have sources and they have different information. They have different information. And I don't know what to make of that. I'm not acting like I have all the answers, or I'm in these rooms, and people are telling me what's going on. I'm just saying it's interesting to me how there's conflicting information on a lot of these different dynamics. And it's like, who are you going to trust? I don't know. Like, it's wild to me. Some of the rumors coming out, and like, you don't know what side is the truth and what is what, and who's getting the information from what. I don't know. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I know. It's really interesting stuff about the offensive line you're hearing about. And there's conflicting information on that. There's conflicting information on the GM Chad and what's going on with that. Like so I don't know what to tell you. And I'm not going to act like I know. What's the word on all these linemen leaving? Well, there's two different stories on that, SPF. Story number one is none of those guys are going to start next year. Who wants to come back as an older guy and ride the bench to a younger, more talented, athletic kid? That's number one. It's not a hyperbole. I don't think any of those guys are going to start next year. Let's start there. So if you're an older guy, why do you want to come back and then lose your starting spot to a younger guy? Because none of them guys are going to start next year. Sorry. None of them are going to start next year. Who wants to come back as a guy with experience and no, you're not going to start? But then there's these rumors that I don't know. I don't know about the offensive line coach, and there's some rumors about the communication and some of the dynamics in that room that some people didn't like or whatever. So I don't know. The easiest thing to me, Anthony says, you mean this year, but you had all the injuries. None of those guys are going to start next year. So you got to tell me why, other than the joy of and pride of wearing a gold helmet, why you would want to come back as an older guy and not play. And that's tough. The only answer would be, I love Notre Dame, or I want to finish my degree, or I want to get a grad degree while on scholarship or whatever. I understand that. But if you're just looking at playing, it's like, why would you do that if you're not going to start? And so that's a part of it. I just think, I wrote an article about this. Building depth along the lines is one of the biggest areas all college football programs have been hit with the ease of the transfer portal and the new flexibility in that world. And that's where I think I'm seeing it. Obviously, a big brand name quarterback, or, the top one or two receivers are big items that could move and be bought and move around too. But I think along those lines is where you're going to start to see lack of depth around the country. Anybody that looks like they're not going to start but thinks they can, and another program is willing to give them an NIL deal and give them a starting job, guys are going to bounce. So, yeah, it hurts Notre Dame's depth. None of those guys were slated to start this year, and they're not going to start next year. And I would not want to be an older guy knowing I'm riding the bench. So whatever, man. So that's a part of it. Let's get through the introduction. I'm going to do a couple chats, and then we'll go to the calls. We'll see what's going on. Thanks for being here. As always, you can find the program on YouTube. Do it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Appreciate it very much. Give the video a thumbs up. That helps me. So, where's Ronald? Interviewing for the Notre Dame GM job, of course. That's where Ronald is. Twitter, search bar Always Irish, or at Always Irish Geek. Emails alwaysirishnd@gmail.com. Audio only. Anywhere you want it, you can get it if you don't want to see my face. Nobody blames you. Call in lines 312-988-15. Dialed up. Tell Uncle Johnny all you've heard and seen. Notre Dame Fighting Irish brought to you by SI. Read all about it. Patreon.com/Always Irish. He the former captain. He the leading tackler. He's had the flu for 3 or 4 days. It's been a rough ride. But I think we're going to get back on it on the Patreon Raw tonight. I think we're all feeling healthy enough. I can breathe again, and Mike's feeling a little better, but it's been a rough ride. It just feels like after the emotional, all of the stuff with the playoff and the title game and everything, everybody kind of came crashing down. And I think it caught up to me, and everybody just kind of crashed out. That's what I think happened. So I don't know, man. It is what it is. Kent Jackson's in the house. All right, let's look at a couple of these chats, and then we'll go to the calls. So I want to know what you guys make of all the rumors, why this happened, why that happened, how this happened, how that happened, what you're hearing about a potential hire for DC, for GM. There's a couple names out there people are agreeing with, disagreeing with, whatever, especially with the GM thing. I struggle with that. Isn't it a bit hard to measure like a GM in the college game? Like, I feel like it's much easier to look at a body of work for like a defensive coordinator than it is for a regular fan to be able to analyze a GM potential hire, because it's a lot of behind the scenes things and you don't see all that work day to day. I feel like that's a little more complicated to work out in your mind of like who you're comfortable with. And the other thing is, a lot of those names are not household names, right? Like the GM thing, a lot of those names are not household names. So you're sitting there like, I don't know if this is good or bad or what this guy's deal is or not. I don't know. So, okay, let me do a couple of these chats, and then we'll see what you guys think. But listen, I don't think all these changes are like outside the lines of what's pretty common. I just feel like the Notre Dame people are not in the mood for it, for instability of any kind coming off what we came off of. That's my feeling. So I don't know, you guys. And all the conflicting information's really interesting to me. It's super interesting to me. Just like somebody's got to be wrong, or when you got one story over here and a total opposite story over here, somebody's got to be wrong. Or is it one of those deals, you guys, where the truth is probably a blend in the middle of a little of this and a little of that? and somebody wants to push an angle that they believe, so they're doing, they're putting their angle out. I don't know, but I just want to say, Chief says, how are we not building off that? Maybe we are building off this. Like, there's no guarantee that all these moves are going to make you worse. I don't know. Bowden said USC was a chance of a lifetime. You know what? Tim Hyde texted me when this happened. It's hilarious. Right when this news dropped, Tim Hyde from Blue and Gold texts me and Goolsby and Singer. We're in a group chat. He texts us. Right when this news broke, Tim Hyde texts, well, it's good to know we don't have to worry about USC having good wide receivers anymore. Oh, my God. That's funny to me. That's really funny. He's like, there goes their wide receiver lineage. He's going to walk through the door and they'll never get a good one again. That was funny. SPF. No, John. ND's moving slightly backwards, just an inch or two. That remains to be seen. I'm not sold on that. I don't know. Could be better. Could be worse. Crying belly. John's going to be in denial about how terrible Chris Ash is for the next few seasons. Watch. He'll be saying it's talent and not coaching when we give up 28 points per game. What are you coming to me for? You know that 50 Cent meme where he goes, what the blank you mad at me for? What are you yelling at me for already? What did I do? Don't shoot the messenger at 9:15 on a Monday morning. What did I do? Jeez. All right. Couple chats and then we'll get into the calls. Domer guy. Who's Chris Ash? Am I missing something? I'm going through these because they're hilarious. We'll get to the calls. Mark with glasses. Why are we scraping the bottom of the barrel? If they're going to hire somebody off the radar, unemployed, I'd rather be a recognizable name with a better resume like Charlie Strong. That's not saying much. My main concern is if you can't tell me it's a slam dunk, it's a mistake if he gets the job. It's Notre Dame. We shouldn't be rolling the dice on guys with this type of resume. Then, here we go. Now we're getting into it. Now we go to the other side. Andrew Gilmore, Happy's brother. These takes on Ash are awful. Fans, if you don't know what you're talking about, don't say anything. Ash was oddest assistant in the country before he went to Rutgers. Rutgers, it'll bring you down. No matter how good that resume is, pretty much lately, Rutgers will drag you down. Ash lost 78-0 to Michigan when he was a head coach at Rutgers. Ash is coach under Bielema and Urban Meyer. Jay Carr. Good morning, always Irish crew. Today's my 27th birthday, so I'm officially in my late 20s. Am I cooked? You are cooked and you're booked, baby. Imagine being 40 and how much more Notre Dame misery you would experience if you were 40, Jay Carr. You still got a hairline. You still got a lot of time ahead of you. Imagine if you're me and you're 40, how much more Notre Dame mediocrity and misery in that time span I've lived. You still got a full head of hair. Happy birthday, buddy. Glad you're joining it with us for it. Honestly, Andrew, are you okay with this? We just played for the championship, and we're settling on a guy that hasn't done anything substantial in years. This is why I like you guys. We're going back, and we're going forth. Ash is essentially same type of hire as Golden. He's the real deal. Barry Alvarez, Bielema, Urban, and Josh Daniels all say he's a great coach. Full disclosure, the very first game, the defense sucks. I'm going to go ahead and call it Chris Ass, and nobody's stopping me. If the defense is bad, when your last name's Ash, if the defense is bad, you got all sorts of jokes that are pre-made and written. SPF. Let's just wait and see what Mickens does. Slowly becoming a hot commodity. I believe if ND goes with Ash, somebody else comes for Mickens. And that's a part of the discussion too, because I'm seeing that there may be a scenario where there's a co-DC thing with Mickens and Ash. Man, I kind of thought that Mickens was ready to assume a DC role, and I thought it might be when Al Golden leaves, he would move in or whatever. Is he willing to do that for another cycle or whatever? Or is somebody going to hire him away and give him a full-time DC role alone? even if it's at a lower level perceived Power 5 school or whatever. Not what I don't know. Crying belly. I got a call about the GM position this morning. If Ash is the new DC, might as well make Ronald McDonald the new GM. If Ash fails at ND, it's Andrew Gilmore's fault. I figured John would be getting a call about the GM spot. No, nobody's called me about it. There's a good chance I might be booing at the spring game. Here's a good point by the Philly special. If this stuff happens before John goes to Florida, it's scary what's going to happen once he's in Florida. Every time I go to Florida and I sit on that patio drinking them Miller Lights, big Notre Dame news breaks. I'm on a 3-year streak. Every time the offseason hits and I go to Florida and I just want to relax, boom, big Notre Dame news. Freeman didn't even try her for Bowden. Freeman soured on Bowden this year, the wide receiver class, and he was going off script with the messaging. Big no-no. Freeman isn't mad that he's gone. That's a very interesting angle on this. Very interesting angle. Ash fired 4 times in the last 5.5 years. GM candidate is Patrick. Is it Suddes? Suddes? Working for Saban and Mac Brown. Pretty darn good pedigree. Mark, this is some BS. We just played the championship game. Now we get a no-name has-been DC, and our GM is probably currently running a Home Depot. John, so much to talk about. Like the BS lies being spread about Rudolph. ND is crazy right now. I am hearing completely conflicting reports on Rudolph. So I'm not going to be one of those guys who tells you I have all the answers. I'm telling you I don't. There is conflicting information. Believe who you want to believe. That's the fairest way I could put it. Being a scout for the Jaguars is a big red flag for me. 7 days ago, we were ready to play in the championship game. And now we're worried about if we're going back to a nickel and dime operation. Oh. Freeman needs to patch up the leaks. Too much negative news coming out of South Bend. I've literally haven't heard good news in 2 weeks. I don't know what to tell you, man. You lose the title game, and then you undergo a bunch of changes. I just think that's pretty common. I just think it's common, but nobody's in the mood. John, can I get a Coach O impression for my birthday? It's all about J Car down there, drink some beers for his birthday down at the bar. Got them lady, maybe go down to the Twin Peak, down to that local Hooters, get yourself some wings, hang out with some girl that a happy birthday, 27 years old. You just started life. You a young boy down here. Oh, I love you, J Car. Chris asks, we'll get us into the Frosted Flakes Bowl. Maybe we'll beat Kelly. Rodney, $2 let's talk about something. Yeah, we're off to the races, man. Rudolph's getting dragged. You'd think the job he did was a really bad one. Again, I'm hearing totally conflicting stories on it, and I cannot tell you which is true. I don't know. I'm not acting like I'm in the building, and whatever. I've heard it all. Is it the waste management in 2 weeks? Hope we get a John rant on that. I'm all for making golf more approachable and appealing to a younger audience. However, that event lets it go way, way too far. I'm right down the middle on that. So, not for the Masters or something, but like I understand for certain events trying to appeal to a younger golf audience and have more of a lively atmosphere than the golf clap atmosphere that I enjoy the real way. Okay. This event has gotten out of control. It's gone way too far, and I think it's embarrassing. That's my answer. Now, I'm going to give you the caveat. If I was 21 or 22 years old, maybe I'd look at this differently. If I was a young cat going drinking all day, maybe I would look at it differently. But where I am now as a golf traditionalist, it's gone way over the line, and I'm uncomfortable with it, and I don't enjoy it at all. It's gone way, way too far. Way too far. $5 from the rotate. I'm here. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for the $5. $10 from the rotate. OSU lost their DC. Is everybody really upset for them this morning? Thoughts and prayers for Iowa State. You can buy a title, but not a coach apparently. Listen, everything's different if you win a championship because you're going whatever happens. At least we got that one in the trophy case. Nobody in Notre Dame land would be reacting negatively to this stuff with the same level of uncertainty, vitriol if you won the championship, right? So I don't know. Let's one more chat here and we'll see what the callers think. $5 holler. I had to take a week off. Love you, John. Go Irish. Baseball time. Go. Don't even bring up baseball. How much misery do you want me to have in a time span? I only care about two teams, Notre Dame and the White Sox. Give me a break. Give me a break. So whatever, you guys. You know what's interesting to me? And then we'll go to the calls. Everybody has their loyalty to certain sources, even though half the time there's no way to verify it, or I don't like, why don't people think I don't know what the truth is and I can live with that? Why does everybody need to know the answers? We're fans. We don't deserve to know the answers. Why can't the answer just be there's a lot of conflicting information and I don't know what the right answer is and we're just going to have to live with that? We don't get to know all the answers all the time. We're fans. You're not supposed to know behind the curtain or whatever. $10 olive from the WPP. Honest question. What is a GM in the context of a college program? Fancy name for recruiting coordinator. GM report to the HC or the other way around. Never heard of this GM thing. What WPP? This is a modern thing. Yeah, John loves the Bears. The Bears do not affect my emotions one way or the other. I watch all their games. I follow all their news because it's the the local team. But the Bears have never affected my emotions at all. And I thank God for that. I'd be dead. I'd be a mummy. I'd be sitting here, Raiders in the Ark, or what is that movie called? The Mummy. What is it? It's a good answer. This show's off the rack. What's that movie about that mummy called? Oh, yeah, The Mummy. Go figure. This became a thing, WPP. This became a thing when NIL started really ramping up and the transfer portal numbers skyrocketed and teams needed somebody to oversee all of that bigger picture roster management. As far as how many guys we have coming, how many we have going, keeping track of the scholarship count and what guys we might want to target. How much money do we have to give for this, to give for that? And so my understanding is Freeman directs the GM, the direction he wants to go and the general framework of like his vision. And then the GM does a lot of that paperwork and all that like tedious stuff, like how much money do we have for NIL? Who's getting what? How much is it going to? How do we negotiate this? How do we do that? The recruiting coordinator would answer to the GM, who answers to Freeman. Freeman sets the tone of like, here's what we're going for. Here's what I want it to look like. Here's my vision. And then the GM kind of runs with some of that. But once you started getting the portal where guys are flying in and out, once the NIL thing became a big thing, it's too much for the head coach to handle alone. You need a trusted right-hand man that's following the head coach's vision to be able to get a lot of those things done. It's too much work for the head coach to navigate all that stuff. And so it isn't like the GM just does it and the coach deals with it. It's not an NFL GM where the head coach answers them relationship. It's inverse. So it is a little different. 3 to 4 years ago, I remember people around Notre Dame saying, you're not going to believe this, Notre Dame fans, but you're going to have a GM soon running this roster, like figuring out all these numbers and all this stuff. 3 to 4 seasons ago, it was like, Notre Dame fans aren't going to believe this. Notre Dame's going to have a GM. It's a modern age thing. It definitely is. And so, all right, I'm sorry, you guys, sinus thing. I got to blow my nose already. It's a half hour in. That's about as long as I could go. That's as long as I could go. And I want to say this too. Everybody in the niche has been working. I want to say this. Everybody in the niche has been working their ass off all this year. and really pushing it this additional month. Everybody's trying the best they can. There's certain people you're going to agree with, disagree with, like how they do things, like me, don't like me. Other people, everybody's working their ass off, trying their, like, it's been a long grind. And I do respect that everybody has been grinding at this, doing the best they can. And it has been a long run for all the Notre Dame niche content people. Dr. John for GM, I'll be right back. We'll go to the calls. I want to know what you guys think on all this. Thanks for your understanding. Oh, that's much better. Man, that's much better. Thank you for your patience, you guys. I really appreciate it. Okay. Pat's in California. Let's get Pat in and out so he could go back to the golf course and take Brian Kelly's skins money. And then Andrew, I want to hear your takes, and then everybody else will get to you. What's going on, Pat?
I'm back from California, John.
Oh, well, that sucks for you. Welcome back. I was hoping you were still out there. Did you have fun wasn't it good timing in a way to get away from all the Notre Dameness and go do something else and have a change of scenery? That's why I'm looking to go to Florida.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I would also like to go to Florida.
Yeah.
Instead of being here.
So Pat, what do you make of all of these changes? Are you in agreement with me that a lot of this stuff happens to every program, but it's just hitting Notre Dame really hard because of the frustration and the immediacy after the title game letdown? Then all these changes happen and you're just stuck in a position to go, are we going to be better off for this, or is it falling apart? Like, that's a natural feeling. And I just think people are stuck in the middle. What do you make of it?
Well, I don't think anything is hitting Notre Dame hard. This is just what happens in the offseason. When your season ends, coaches leave, players transfer, and, shit happens. But the first thing with El Golden going to the NFL, okay, I could have told you that was going to happen. He was having a great season, and a job and a team that he previously worked for opened up that he would have wanted. So, I appreciate everything El Golden did for Notre Dame, and wish him the best of luck in the NFL, especially now that what he's doing doesn't conflict with what Notre Dame is going to do. The Chad Bowden thing, I'm kind of in Gilmore's take on it. I agree with Gilmore on this. Like, what are we losing here?
Yeah,
we're always complaining the recruiting.
Yeah,
we're saying the recruiting.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There's room for improvement. If this was a top 5 recruiting operation every year, I think the tone would be a little different from me.
The way I see it, we just got our biggest rival to overpay for something that I think is subpar.
Yeah,
it's the way I look at it.
Yeah, now a part of it, Pat, a part of it is I know this is a part of it, whether people want to admit it or even realize it or not. It annoys Notre Dame people that he flirted with Michigan last year, and all those articles came out that Michigan was trying to steal him, and then Notre Dame held on to him, and then now it's USC. I feel like that is a part of this. If it was like going to Nebraska or something, I don't feel like there would be the reaction. But when you flirt with Michigan one off season and then you jump for USC, I think that's the part where Notre Dame fans are like, this is a bit much.
Yeah, well, I never saw the value in the guy. I was doing a good job, but I'm sure he could do a better job. I'll tell you this: he's definitely not worth $1 million a year.
Yeah,
he's not worth $1 million. That position, that's more than some of your assistant coaches. I'm not saying Notre Dame shouldn't go find a guy who is. I would be happy for Notre Dame to find a guy and pay a guy $1 million a year if he's really worth it. But he's got to show better results than what Chad was showing. But whatever, he's gone. Here's the thing. Okay, we lost an assistant coach. We lost the defensive coordinator. We lost the general manager, and we had some offensive linemen transfer. How do people say the house is on fire? Like, I don't get that at all. We knew these linemen were going to transfer because they weren't going to play. We knew, we damn well knew that Al Golden was likely going to get an opportunity to go back to the NFL, and we always knew that he would take it. So none of this is like, oh my God. Now, like if Leonard Moore transferred, or if Jagasaw transferred, or somebody like that of that age where they're a young guy and the potential is through the roof.
Yeah,
I would be a little more concerned.
Yeah, then you would go, then you would say, why did these really good guys with the bright future ahead of them not want to do it here? That would be a different discussion. I get that.
And if you also look at it, like you sometimes need guys to leave the program. It's some, addition by subtraction is an actual thing. It's addition by subtraction. Now with the DC thing, again, I agree with Gilmore. This guy, he's bounced around. Who succeeds at Rutgers? Rutgers has nothing to give. So who really succeeds there? It takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort to succeed at Rutgers. The guy was the co-defensive coordinator, since we're talking about co-defensive coordinator. He was the co-defensive coordinator at Ohio State, I think, when they won the title. So he was coaching under Urban Meyer. He has an understanding of the effort it takes from a coach who was very successful. So I doubt it's a bad hire if we get him. So yeah, he went to the NFL. He bounced around in the NFL. He followed Urban Meyer to the NFL. Urban Meyer got fired. He got fired. Then he went to the Raiders, and their coach got fired. He got fired. So I'm not, just because he's made some bad decisions in following people around, I'm not going to dog him for that. And because Al Golden got fired from a head coaching job, and he was he was the linebackers coach at the Bengals when Notre Dame hired to be a defensive coordinator. He wasn't a defensive coordinator in the NFL. He was a position coach. So I'm not down on Ash. It's the important thing, and Ash fills an important role for the defense, because if people remember, Golden wasn't coaching a position. Golden was just running the defense. He was the head coach of the defense, and this Ash can coach safeties, which allows Mickens just to focus on the corners, and that would actually be helpful. But I think the person you have to take care of the most is Mickens. Yeah, Mickens is your best recruit.
Yep, that was my next. Yeah, that was my next question for you. Is that co-DC thing? It feels to me like Mickens may be ready for something beyond that. Maybe not, but like that would be an ideal situation almost if you were able to pull that off. But I don't know if somebody else is going to be willing to offer Mickens a full-time DC job. I don't know.
Co-DC is like co-DC or run game coordinator, pass game coordinator. Those are just titles to pay people more money and to enhance their resume. Like Al Golden was, I don't care that Mickens was the defensive pass game coordinator. Al Golden was running that defense. And if the Ash guy is hired and it's a co-DC title, I'm assuming Ash is going to be running the defense and Mickens is just going to be doing what he's doing. I mean, look at the situation at Penn State. They just paid Jim Knowles $3 million. They pay him $3 million to go to Penn State. Penn State has a co-defensive coordinator on the roster already. They already had, they were in a co-defensive coordinator situation last year. So it's just a title to pay a guy who you value and want to make sure that you could justify his salary. So I don't understand why people get so worked. Like, this is the mildest. I was expecting, some wide receivers to go. I was expecting, I know Jaden Thomas left, but I was expecting more than that. But they're not. They're not. Notre Dame had nobody enter the transfer portal during the playoff run. Penn State had a bunch of guys. Ohio State had a bunch of guys. Notre Dame had nobody do it.
Yeah.
And so, like, if anyone is sitting there like, oh my God, everything's bad, everything's falling apart. No. No, it's not. It's not falling apart. The most important piece is still there. And the most important piece is your head coach. And Freeman has earned the right to say, let me do this, and for us to just trust that he's going to make the right decisions.
Yeah, it's listen, I understand why it's heated right now. I genuinely think there's something to all this happening when everybody's in a bad mood after the title game. Like I get it. But it's like, who are we to be I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert on GM hires. Like no fan really knows like the inner working. Like a lot of those names you don't even know, and then they pop up and you Google their resume. But like people acting like they know all these GMs personally and who would be good or not. It's just tough, man. But I just think nobody's in the mood for instability or perceived instability after the letdown. But there's no, I wrote about this Saturday. There's no reason Notre Dame can't get better from these changes. Like nobody seems to be open to that.
I agree. I think if El Golden did us anything, he left us with knowing that we have a fantastic defense. I still think we're light on the defensive line, and maybe injuries played a bigger part of that this season. But it was still there's more work that needs to be done. There's no monsters on the defensive line like there's a Jagasaw on the offensive line. But I'm not worried. I'm still in the mood of I'm so proud of this team. I'm so proud of the coaching staff. Yeah, they lost the championship game to Ohio State. It sucks. It sucks, and it's going to suck forever. But that team never quit. And that team put itself in a position it didn't belong. And belonging meaning because of the loss of Northern Illinois, they had a huge mountain to climb. But they're successful, and they work their asses off. You know what? The only thing I'm more worried about is the BS coming out about the shit in the locker room after the game. I haven't heard anything on that from Notre Dame's side, where the reporters calling them amateurs and saying the players.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
But nobody's saying anything about it, so I'm just going to leave it alone. But that was dude, Abe, about gaming. I don't know who you are, but dude, go piss off. Anyways, so that was the story. Like, because I always thought this team handled itself in an expert way. But otherwise, you know, I'm fully on board with Marcus Freeman and the decisions that he has to make. And I think this was the best football season I've seen from Notre Dame in my 40 years. It's great.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. We'll see. This is all going to shake out, and I'm holding to the idea that you might just get better because some of these changes, and it might be time, Pat, after the initial run of the Freeman era. He's no longer the new guy. You're entering year 4. It's a different phase of his tenure, and maybe it's time to retool some things. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I don't know.
No, you have to look. I've been in the business world for 20 years now, and any place I've ever worked at, every 2 to 3 years, there's a shakeup, there's a refresh. It doesn't mean like people are fired and stuff like that. It just means you have to shake things up. You can't just because it worked yesterday doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow. So there's nothing wrong with change. There's nothing wrong with changing the roster over. There's nothing wrong with changing coaches. There's nothing wrong with that stuff. So it could be a good thing if it's done correctly.
Yeah,
it's got to be done correctly. And Marcus Freeman has earned the right to do this the way he wants it to do it.
Yeah,
so it's his call.
Yep, and we'll see what happens, and they'll make decisions, and everybody will break them down and analyze the positives and the negatives and all this stuff. Anything else, Pat? Thanks. I'm glad you were able to get away, man, and get some warmer weather.
Yeah, I want to hear more about Ash from Gilmore. It sounds like he's done a little bit more research. But we should be celebrating Notre Dame right now and what they accomplished this past season. We shouldn't be saying I know, Mark, you're kidding, but some of the stuff is just pretty wild.
It's hilarious. Pat, I love you, buddy. Thanks for giving me a call. Glad you were able to get away.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Have a good one. Oh, that's funny. This is hilarious too. Maybe from Tex Indy, maybe Freeman should take Ash to the hockey game. Yeah, you should take him to the hockey game, put him on the big screen, and then present the wrong numbers in the negotiation. Oh man, I'm telling you, that might have been the high point of my Notre Dame media career, was when Jack Swarbrick said, "I'm sick of these people in their basements acting like they're reporting the news." I took that personally, and he's mad that I called him out because I was 100% accurate that Notre Dame dropped the ball and messed up that entire thing. It was all Notre Dame's fault, and he didn't like it. Those stupid people in their basements breaking news. Andrew Gilmore, what are the realities here? Rodney, I got you next. Everybody else on hold, you're coming up. Andrew, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, what's up, John? How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Andrew, I got to tell you, I'm a little concerned. You and Pat are on the same side. On these issues. I'm starting to think something's wrong. What do you think are the realities of this entire dynamic, Andrew?
Yeah, well, I want to start with saying that, I obviously in the chat, I've been, saying a lot of positive stuff about Ash. And the reason why I'm saying that is what frustrates me is, one so-called, ND media member really bashes Ash. And then you see a lot of his disciples go in there and just bash him. And then you have other people who don't even know who he is. And because they don't know who he is, they're bashing the hire. And it's just I don't know. I mean, I've been such a fan of college football my entire life. I'm obviously Notre Dame is number one for me, but I watch everything else. So I know about Chris Ash. And in fact, I went to Rutgers. I'm a Rutgers graduate. So I know what happened with Chris Ash at Rutgers. So I just think it's important for people to research this guy, learn about his resume, and then make a decision on him. Because if you do any sort of research, you'll find out that Barry Alvarez, Brett Bielema, Urban Meyer, and Josh McDaniels all say this guy's a hell of a coach. I mean, that's a pretty darn good resume. I mean, that's a better resume than when Marcus Freeman got hired at Notre Dame. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I think so. So what do you think the negativity is? That it went horrible at Rutgers, which it does for most people anyways, or because he's not because he's not a hot name that's top of mind, so people assume he's no good, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. It's those two things. So I'll give the ND fans some insight onto Rutgers. You're absolutely right. Rutgers is one of the worst jobs in the country. The only reason why Rutgers is decent is that, in my opinion, Greg Schiano is one of the best coaches in college football. And in fact, I laughed when Tennessee fans, ran him out of town and tried to hire him, because all they did was they did no research on him. All they did was look at his overall record at Rutgers, not realizing that Rutgers was the worst team in Division I for 50 years. And he took the worst program in Division I and made them into a top 10 football team by the end. I mean, unbelievable job. He's the only guy that's been able to succeed there. In fact, his successor was a guy named Kyle Flood, who was the coach before Chris Ash. And Kyle Flood failed there. You know what Kyle Flood did after he left Rutgers? He won the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line. Then Sarkisian took him from Alabama, made him his OC. He's been the OC ever since. And he recruited guys like Arch Manning and stuff like that. So it just goes to show you, to judge Chris Ash at all on his Rutgers performance, it was a bad decision. He was the hottest defensive assistant in the country. He had revamped Wisconsin's defense. He was their DB coach. Bielema hired him. They had their two best years. Bielema then goes to Arkansas, brings him with him. Urban Meyer thought so highly of him, steals him away from Arkansas. Then Urban Meyer says it's close, he was a relentless recruiter at Ohio State, number one. And number two, he was the best assistant he ever had. Don't take my word for it. Google Urban Meyer and Chris Ash. That's the high praise. And then Urban Meyer literally says in an article, I warned Chris Ash about Rutgers, how hard that job is. And so I think that really ruined his reputation. He then had to sit out a year because he's getting his big money from Rutgers because they fired him. And by the way, Rutgers was in severe debt when Chris Ash took the job, because they were an AAC team. They had to pay a huge exit fee, and then when they went into the Big Ten, they were only getting a half share. So he took over. It's very similar to Al Golden. He took over a program in real flux, and so it's just I don't judge that. Then he goes to Texas, And Texas paid him a boatload of money to try to save Tom Herman. So it's like he gets everybody says, oh, he's only at Texas for a year, he got fired. Dude, he was a desperation move from Texas because they wanted to save the Tom Herman era, and he couldn't save it. So it's like, you're really going to put that on him? And then he bounces around a little bit in the NFL. I think the only problem with Chris Ash is that he should fire his agent. His agent gave him bad advice. He was on the rise. He took some bad jobs. So I think.
You want to know what's interesting? Here's what a note that I found that's very interesting about what you just said. Ash happens to share agents with one Mr. Marcus Freeman, same agent.
Well, there you go. Well, and then, you know what I would also say is, in the chat, I asked you, I know that you've got your sources and stuff like that, but I know you're not like a beat reporter. You're not living in South Bend going to every conference. Do you guys, does SI have a guy in every media scrum? The question if I was with SI and I was in the media room, I would ask Marcus Freeman, do you talk on a daily basis, or how often do you talk with Urban Meyer? Because I've heard rumors that he talks to Urban Meyer quite a bit. And I think that if he says, yes, I talk to Urban Meyer a lot, I think that really kind of tells you a lot about what his decision-making is, and like why he would go with a guy like Ash, and why he's even looking at the general manager that he's looking at. Because Urban Meyer is a huge proponent of, it doesn't matter how smart you are as a coach, how good you are at calling plays. It's all about the talent on the field. And so, like, when he says that someone's a relentless recruiter, you have to really take note of that, because Urban Meyer is one of the best recruiters of all time. So I think that a lot of these decisions that Freeman are making, I think, are affected by some of the advice he's getting from Urban Meyer.
That's interesting. We're not at every one. The problem, Andrew, is we don't have somebody that lives local. Like, a lot of those outlets, either the people move there or they are local, like Mishawaka or something where it's an easy drive. That's the problem we have, is nobody lives local. We had one guy that did, and then he moved to Indianapolis. So we don't have somebody in town, and that makes those logistics tough. And so, but man, you bring up some really interesting points. What would your response be if it's like, okay, maybe Ash had some like heat to him, but it was a long time ago, right? Like, maybe he was a hot name a long time ago. Some people are bringing that up as a problem, that maybe like he flamed up and then now that flame isn't burning as bright now. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that's legitimate criticism. Absolutely. That's the only legit criticism that you can give him. You cannot say this guy's been unsuccessful, though, as a DC. He has. He's proven it multiple stops. But what I would say is, isn't that part of the vetting process? I mean, like 90% of your audience, John, says that Marcus Freeman knows what he's doing, and he's really clued in. So you have to think that, like, he's not just hiring a name. He's bringing you in, he's vetting you out, and you're telling them what your plan is for the defense. And so it's like, so it's on Marcus Freeman. No hire is 100% a home run. Like, even a guy like Jim Leonard, like, I thought the idea that Jim Leonard, the former Wisconsin DC, that would have been an awesome hire. But Jim Leonard is kind of similar to Chris Ash. He was a hot name 5 years ago. He didn't get the Wisconsin job, and he's sort of just been in the NFL as an assistant. Now, he's been more successful as an assistant in the NFL just because Sean Payton turned around the Broncos, and now he's getting DC, interviews in the NFL. But, like, yeah, it's like, I don't think anybody would be complaining if Jim Leonard got named the DC. So, like, I just think this guy's got the pedigree. I think if you don't know who he is, you got to look at where did he coach and who did he coach for and who are his references. And this guy's got some of the best references out of any coach in the country. Just had a DC that was in the NFL for 10 years, who never even made it to a defensive coordinator status. He was just an assistant coach in the NFL.
Let me ask you about this part of it.
Yeah.
Wasn't one of the, maybe I'm wrong on this, but my impression of Al Golden was CEO of the defense, really good at running the defense, whatever, but was never really known as the most aggressive modern recruiter. Do you feel like that's an angle where Ash would be able to provide some more benefit and be more engaged in that area? Or is he over 50 now and that really isn't his thing, that he's going to push the way Freeman does too, or do you think there could be some upside there? And maybe I'm wrong on the assumption about Al Golden and all that. I'm not saying he's lazy, but an older guy who was brought in more to run the defense while other people do that, more of the heavy lifting there. What do you think of that part of this?
Well, I'll just start by saying that as long as Al Golden wanted to be at Notre Dame, he would be the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, because of the results on the field. Just because of the results on the field. Yeah.
That's how much respect Freeman has for him, too. So I'll start there. But, yes, I will say, again, that's why I was like, find out how influential Urban Meyer is. Because I've heard through secondhand sources that Freeman talks to Urban Meyer a lot. And I think that it's important, if you ever hear what Urban Meyer has to say, it's recruiting, recruiting, recruiting. And if you ever hear anything that Freeman has to say, it's recruiting, recruiting, recruiting. And so, like, when he hears something from Urban Meyer that this guy was known as a relentless recruiter when he was the DC at Ohio State, that's got to perk Freeman's ears up, correct? It's like I'm not saying that Al Golden didn't recruit. I think Al Golden was probably a very good closer. But I just don't think anybody would ever put on Al Golden's, list of adjectives that he's a relentless recruiter. I think he's just a really good DC. So I think that Freeman's maybe willing to trade play-by-play, play calling for a relentless recruiter, because I think at the end of the day, what Ohio State sort of exposed to us Notre Dame fans is that for how good this roster was and for how good our coaching was, we lacked two things. The first thing we lack are we don't have big play wide receivers. We've got to fix that, and I hope this new GM that we bring in does that.
Yeah.
But number two, we need elite. You need, like, it is so hard to win a championship if you don't have an elite pass rush. Like, I'm talking about edge guys that are awesome. And so if you look at Urban Meyer's time at Ohio State, Jesus, how many awesome defensive ends they brought in. So I got to think Marcus Freeman has that calculus. And he's like, hey, listen, I'm going to bring in the best recruiters I can. And so if I can bring in a really good defensive line and he recruits, it's a home run. Plus, because Ash has been out of college football and sort of been toiling around the NFL, you might even get him at a bargain. Did you see how much Jim Knowles made at Penn State?
Yeah.
Like, he's getting paid like a power 4 head football coach. I guarantee you Ash is not that expensive. So you can get a guy almost of the quality of Jim Knowles, and you pay him like 60% of what, or maybe even less than that, of what you would have had to pay for Jim Knowles or Jim Leonard, because Jim Leonard was, a lot of people think Jim Leonard is going to get a DC job in the NFL. So I think he could be a steal. Now, again, I agree with the criticism. He hasn't been a hot name in close to 10 years in college football. So if it flames out, then those people can say they're right.
Yeah, dude,
just know who
the chat is hilarious because it's just like, this guy is terrible. This guy's old news. Like, this is a bad deal. Like, so somebody's going to be right or wrong on all this if this is the way it goes. It's just really interesting to me.
It's so dumb. He's terrible. It's like to hold Rutgers against him and to hold what happened at Texas against him.
Yeah.
So
and people are. They're bringing up 27, 28 points a game average. We don't like that. Like, yeah, people are bringing that up. So I don't know, man. Somebody's going to be right. Somebody's going to be wrong. I don't know. And then anything on the DC thing or the GM thing before I let you go?
Well, I would just say, hey, listen, I think it's weak on anybody's part to bash Bowden on the way out, because Lord knows I've called into your show and I've been the only voice who has ever been critical about it. So it's weak on Notre Dame fans, and if any media members are bashing him on the way out. With that said, my biggest issue with Bowden was when he became the head of recruiting and then eventually the GM, there was one room in terms of positions that had the most glaring weaknesses, and that was the wide receiver room.
Yep.
In his 3 or 4 years on the staff, our wide receiver room, and I don't care how good Greathouse looked in the playoff, our wide receiver room has not gotten better. Okay? We don't have any, like, our leading wide receiver for the last few years is like getting 400 yards receiving. That's horrible. Even really kind of just super average Notre Dame guys, in the prior years, we're getting like 800, 900 yards receiving. I mean, you could go through it. Like, we don't have anywhere close to that So he did not solve that problem, and I think that we saw, like, it's really hard to win games when you can only get 300 yards of total offense. Really tough. So I think that Freeman has a chance now to really upgrade there. Let's find a guy who knows how to recruit wide receivers. I mean, it's just so frustrating. You can go to California or Texas, and wide receivers grow on trees. Like, these 3-star guys in California and Texas are all good. Just, like, you know what I mean? Like, just go get some of these guys. Like, it's just crazy to me. And then, again, the teams that win championship have the best pass rushers. Nick Saban knows that. Urban Meyer knows that. I like this name they're mentioning, the former North Carolina guy, because he worked for Saban and he worked for Mac Brown. Both those guys are elite recruiters, and that's where he learned how to do it. So I think he's better than Bowden in terms of his resume, only because Bowden's coming from Cincinnati. And I also don't like the fact that Bowden is a silver spoon guy. He's the son of that famous general manager, Jim Bowden, who's Cincinnati royalty. So it's like, this guy has just gotten every break in his life. Let's go in and find a guy who had to come up from nothing, really learn from the best, and then boom. So I think it's time for a change.
Yeah, it's man, if you were recruiting the number 5 and 6 classes every year or whatever, then I get being like, oh man, this is like, you're like almost maxing out what Notre Dame's recruiting operations capable of. This is going to be tough. But when you're averaging the 12th or 13th or 14th classes most years, I think there's room for improvement there. Maybe this middle portion, beginning of the Freeman era, you could use something like that. Do you have any thoughts on that North Carolina? Is it Sudds? Pat, Suddes? That's the name I saw from North Carolina.
I don't know. I don't think it's to your point earlier, like with these like admin guys, like who are not media facing.
Yeah, fans don't know. How can you have a judgment?
So what you do? Yeah, so what you got to do is you look at what is his resume? Who has he coached with? And that to me, it's sort of like, I don't know. I think you had mentioned your wife was in medicine. Like when a doctor gets hired, they say, well, what college did you go to? Where did you do your residency? What doctors did you work for? That's like the best reference that you can do. So with these GM guys, that's what we should be looking for, unless like they're like Theo Epstein and they develop this new formula that is going to be amazing. You know what I mean? Like that could also be another way to do it. But I think it's not rocket science when it comes to football. The best GMs, the best coaches tend to come from the best coaching trees. And so if you're coming from Nick Saban and Mac Brown, I mean, whatever you want to say about Mac Brown as a down-to-down head football coach, we can all agree that Mac Brown was a hell of a recruiter, even like at how old he is now, like 75. He can still recruit. So I like that. So
yeah, this is all just as the world turns, man. Change is the only constant, and these things are going to settle out, and then we're going to get some answers. Andrew, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate all the thought you put into this stuff, and calling with your opinions and reasoning it out. And I'm happy to give you a little extended time on here today to do that. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Have a good one. I really do appreciate that. Jason Smith, this hire is terrible if we lose Mickens because of it. Like, it's just really interesting. I think the assumption was that Mickens was being groomed for the full-time DC job whenever Al Golden retired or went to do something else. Now it doesn't seem like that's happening. And if you're able to keep him in the building and he's okay with that, and you can keep the good stuff he has going in the secondary and then add somebody, maybe people will feel better about it. Mickens' youth, he's a younger guy in like the big picture. And he's a younger guy, so maybe people like that energy. He's Freeman's road dog. They've been buddies forever. There's some trust there. So I don't know. And 574 Kevin says Tim Brown or Jerome Bettis for GM. I love those guys, but like GM takes a lot of knowing how to do all these numbers and all these negotiations and everything. I don't just think throwing a big Notre Dame name there answers the bell. Like, you got to have experience doing the books and parsing out this money and doing these negotiations. Maybe those guys are good at that and I don't know it, but that is not just a job for a name. Like, that's not just like, oh, Jerome Bettis is, and it's like it's not just an ambassador role where you want a Notre Dame name people respect. I think you gotta have some chops as far as the business side of doing all this. Jerome has a business degree from Mendoza. I mean, I get it, but is it that kind of business? Like, I don't know. I'm not poo-pooing anything. I don't know what that GM role looks like day for day. Get that dude from the Shark Tank, who, Mr. Wonderful? So I don't know. We're going to see. But I saw that North Carolina guy was being targeted. By the way, Football Scoop John Bryce, just in case people are curious, Football Scoop's John Bryce, who does a lot of contractual digging and gets a lot of numbers on things that I appreciate. Yeah, Shane Gillis for GM. They said that Chad was making $275 at the minimum at Notre Dame. So if anybody's wondering these numbers or whatever, John Bryce is pretty good with this stuff, and he had $275 as the number for Notre Dame. So whatever, man. I don't know. I don't know. Rodney, what's going on? Welcome to the show, man. Thanks for the wait.
Hey, man. What's up, John? Great call. Both last two, like Pat and Andrew.
Yeah, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on, Rodney. Can I start and ask you something I talked to both of them about? Tell me if I'm off. My feel on this could be off, Rodney. I just feel like nobody in Notre Dame land is particularly in the mood for any sort of perceived instability, even if it's just perceived, coming off of like feeling crappy about how the season ended and all that emotional roller coaster. And I feel like that is ramping up the anxiety on these moving pieces. Do you agree with that or no?
Yes. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think what's happening now, and this is why I didn't really lose my shit over it to say that, is because this has been happening the last couple of years. I mean, and then you take the NIU loss and we get to the national title game. I mean, I'm just saying, man, what a hell of a run. And I think that I wanted to start the call kind of with what you were just saying, John, perception. I want to just put this in perspective, okay? That Ohio State team, if you take away that Michigan loss, is probably one of the best college football teams of the last 30 years. If you take away the Michigan loss. I mean, the way they played in the playoffs, I think you can stack that up against the Alabama team in 2020. I just put that one ahead. Don't get me wrong. The 2018 Clemson team, the 2012 Alabama team, the 2019 LSU team. I mean, Notre Dame has been pretty snake bitten, by the way, and these games that they've lost, they've had to play some of the all-time best teams. I mean, let's put that in perspective.
Listen, man, that sounds like excuse making. It really does. But if you think about it, Notre Dame has ran into some monsters in these moments. You're right about that. It sounds like excuse making, but we really have ran into some monster outfits.
And that guy it got under my skin. I know, and you handled it great, and you called him a troll and all that, and that's what he was. That Cade dude or Kane or whatever. I don't know Kane, I mean, whatever that guy was.
It's gotta be Kane. It's gotta be Kane.
I'm sorry, but what a D-bag. It's like, dude, first of all, have a little class. I mean, it's okay to troll, but he comes in and, man, we'll never beat Ohio State in a million years. I mean, what a stupid thing to say, first of all. People don't seem to understand. Everybody brings up that 19. And believe me, John, probably more than any of your normal callers and normal – Ohio State gets under my skin more than it does most of you, okay? Because that's a monkey I feel like we have to get off our back. We got to get that Ohio State monkey off our back. We just do. But a lot of it's just perceptual, I admit. I mean, they didn't play him for 60 years from 1936 to 1995. And I'm just going to go through something real quick. I'm going to get off the Ohio State thing. But that 95 team and the 96 Ohio State team, that is when Ohio State started becoming a great program. And they have been pretty much for 30 years since. In the 95, 96 years, then they went 10 years without playing again. and played him in the Fiesta Bowl, Charlie Weiss's team. Then they played him again 10 years later. I think it was also the Fiesta Bowl with Brian Kelly. That was another team that was snake bitten by injuries. Then we lose Jalen Smith in the game. It's worse. And then the last 3 years, Marcus Freeman, in his first year as a head coach, obviously, they gave a hard-fought effort, but not as, we didn't have the same roster. Last year, we should have won. The 2023 game, we should have won. I mean, we all know that. I mean, we didn't. We lost. Fair. And then, this one, playing a team that they beat everybody like that. They're like, well, at some point, Notre Dame's got to go over the hump. I agree with you, but let's be honest about something, man. Every time we played Ohio State these last 7 times, and I hate saying that, they have had the better roster in every one of those games. Last year, even last year's game, I think we had the better quarterback at that time or whatever. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I just want to put all this in perspective. Having said that, it's in a way, though, John, losing that game to Ohio State, you know where you stand. You know where you have to get better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I have so much faith under Freeman. He's proven me, well, I won't say proven me wrong. He's proven me right. Everything that seems to happen negatively, he attacks that and tries to fix it, and does everything he can to fix it, and then generally does. So, I mean, I'm really proud of that team. It is the best Notre Dame team we've had. I mean, I saw probably 4 of them that were better. The 88, 89, 92, 93 teams were better than this one. But outside of that, I think this is the best one we've had. And they're only going to get better. And, as far as the Chris Ash thing, that's news to me this morning. I looked him up as you were talking. We were looking up all this research. I'm listening to Andrew talk about him. And I'm like, sounds a lot like Al Golden. It sounds a lot like Al Golden. And I'm like, whatever, man. I trust Freeman to make the right hire, and that's great. I hope he does talk to Urban Meyer on a regular basis.
Man,
say what you want about Urban, but he knows football.
Rodney, a part of me feels like, year 3 and all the history with Notre Dame coaches in their 3rd year and all that. Now you're entering a different phase of the Freeman era. The standard and the bar has been raised a little bit because you won a few playoff games. Now you're entering a different phase of the Freeman era. A part of me doesn't mind a little tune-up. Like Freeman went with his gut the first few years and lined things up. Now he's no longer the rookie with no experience. Maybe Freeman's developing a better feel for some things he wants to tweak. And I'm open to that. Is there a little risk in that? Yes. But you could also get better from it. And I'm open to the idea that this is a new phase and maybe Freeman wants to kind of tweak things a little bit. And I'm open to that.
100% agree with you, John. I think that's exactly how I feel. I feel like probably with the Bowden thing, again, none of us know. We're not there behind the scenes, although you get more information from people that are maybe in the know. But my gut feeling was he's not worth 3 times the amount. I get USC doing that. USC had to make a desperate move. I won't say desperate, but they had to show some aggression. Good on them. It doesn't bother me that he went to USC. I guess it does. But, I mean, it's a free market. You know what I'm saying? It's like if they're going to pay you that much money, I don't blame them for taking it. At the same time, I don't blame Notre Dame for not matching the offer, especially if they know that, like you said, I'm sure it wasn't that they didn't want them, but it's like, but we don't want you for 3 times the amount. We're good. It's not that they're being cheap. By the way, didn't Notre Dame just make $1 gazillion million like during this playoff run?
That's a good point.
Because they are independent?
It's a good point. You don't have to share. You don't have to share.
Right? I mean, that's amazing, John. I mean, what they're going to be able to do now with money, I'm not worried about at all. I mean, because it feels like everybody's all in now. We were talking a couple of years ago about, Freeman's all in, coaching staff's all in, players all in, but is the higher-ups all in? It sounds like they are. So I'm really not worried. Like, the one loss I will say that kind of bothered me was Pat Coogan leaving, because I thought, okay, I get it. You can't, even though people are saying, well, I mean, look what happened this year. He would have been a starter, and he's basically kind of a starter because he's probably the first guy on off the bench, for any of those 3 middle positions on the offensive line, possibly. But I also think, but also at the same time, you can't predict that happening. I mean, you're probably someone gets hurt and you're starting, or maybe you're just playing like a starter because you're always the backup for whatever those positions are. But definitely in terms of like guaranteeing you a starting spot, it probably was to the best decision for those three to leave. I mean, I'm just saying, especially with NIL being included in that. So I'm just saying, like, that was the one loss. I was like, it's such a bummer. I would have liked to have seen him stay. But the other two, I completely understand. Still really good offensive linemen, but yeah, but that's the thing, man. That's a good problem to have when you have guys that are leaving that are really good players, but yet we're that stocked at that.
I'm telling you,
we can allow that.
Listen, there's a chance Will Black walks in here and starts day one as a true freshman right off the street. He's an absolute monster. He's got all the size and he's got quick feet, and he's in high school right now. Like that offensive line with health is going to be really, really good. Rodney, anything else, man? Thanks for touching base. I feel like everybody kind of need a little cool off period after the end of the season. And I feel like my head's starting to clear up a little bit and I'm in a better place to start thinking about the future. Anything else, man? Thanks for the call.
No, just, like that Ohio State game stunk, dude, as far as how I felt after the game. I mean, I was so happy for them that they came back though, because that would have really felt empty, John, if that 31-7 would just kept going in that direction. That would have sucked. It was really good to see them fight back in that fourth quarter and make a game of it. Because I'll be honest, man, that stretch of where Ohio State scored like 5 times in a row, I'm like, yeah, they're great. Don't get me wrong. And I also do feel out. Again, I'm not saying Al Golden didn't care about the game, but I do think he was a little distracted, and I think we could have played a lot better. I think we should have played a lot better and made that game a little closer. Having said that, let me just leave you with this, Sean. As great as a run this was and how proud I am of the team for what they got every speck of talent out of that group and skill. But wouldn't it have felt a little weird it would have been great, but it would have felt a little weird if we would have won that national title game knowing, God, this team, because of who we lost during the year. I don't mean we weren't talented enough. I just mean because of the players that went down. We were a mess unit.
Yeah, it would have been weird. It would have been the best weird thing of my entire miserable existence. Yes, it would have been weird. It would have been weird. And Rodney, here's the way to look at it. As flawed as Notre Dame's roster was, as banged up as Notre Dame's roster was, you were one of the final 2 teams standing, and you lost to a team that had it all rolling at the right time with good coaches, and they were hot through the playoff, and they were not perfectly healthy, but I know Ohio State people, they're going to say we had injuries too, way more healthy than we were, and now you got to look at it as you were one of the last 2 standing. That's pretty darn good, and we were really, really flawed. What could it be like if you fix some of those issues and have better health? That should encourage Notre Dame people.
Right. 100% agree, and that's why some that Cade dude called in, and then some of these LSU people I saw, it's like, dude, just admit you hate Notre Dame. I'm okay with it if you do that. Just say you hate them. You don't wish anything good on them, and they suck because of that. But don't. The logic that these people try to make, and it's like, dude, that doesn't even make sense. And it's like, well, then what does that say about you? And I'm talking about some of the LSU people. It's like, dude, we got to the final game. So what Ohio State did to Notre Dame, beating them by 11, they were blowing all those teams up, 3 through 130. We made it to the final game, and we showed some, we fought at the end. We played great in the beginning. I'll leave you with that, John. But this program's in extremely healthy shape.
Yeah.
I'll leave you with that.
Hey, and Rodney, the other thing is, it seems like a few weeks from now, and we'll be drinking beer at the Blue and Gold tailgate because the season ran on so long.
Right.
It's only going to be a few more weeks, and we'll all be together in that parking lot freezing again. God bless you, Rodney. Have a good day.
With no stress because
yeah, exactly. Hey, I'll be cold, but I won't be pacing around like I was the last time we were in the parking lot. That's for sure. Right. Have a good one, buddy.
Right, have a good one, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Man, I love how much people care about all this. WPP, $10 hour. If Freeman's managing the staff as he manages QB room, promise an assistant coach, he could get promoted, promising a recruited QB he could start, and then hiring an outsider. Wait, who's the recruited quarterback he promised would start early? Who am I missing something? I'm not being sarcastic. I'm genuinely asking. Mark, I'm worried about everything. Ryan Yoder, $2 hour. Do you think Cam Williams will be big this year? My understanding is He had a very rudimentary understanding of like the X's and O's parts of college football. The offense he played in high school was just more see ball, get ball, run, go, not a lot of terminology, not a lot of technical stuff. Combining that with adjusting to getting into Notre Dame and academics and everything, he needed a year to just acclimate and learn. Goolsby is still a big believer in his skill set and thinks he can make a big impact next year, and you're going to need it. This is really interesting from Andrew Gilmore. Andrew's on fire today. The funny part is that the chat wanted Jim Knowles and would have paid anything. He won a title. The last DC to win a title at Ohio State was Chris Ash. Also, he never lost to Michigan. Knowles never beat Michigan. Really interesting point, counterpoint by Andrew. Would the only argument, Andrew, I'm sure you're still listening, would the only pushback be the time in between? And what have you done for me in the time in between when you did that and now? I think when I'm looking at your argument you just presented, that would be the angle, is like, what about that gap of time since then? Is that old news? Like, whatever, that would be, that would maybe be the comeback there. And Ohio podcast, I see something you wrote. I'm going to save that for later. I got something for that. 415, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
What's up, John? How you doing, boss?
I'm doing well, man. There's just a lot going on, and we're trying to sort through it and figure out what's reality and what isn't, and what does all this mean? Do you have any opinions? I'm sure you do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, as you like to say, there's never a dull day or never a dull moment, is there?
I'm telling you,
and
man.
Here we are once again.
It's amazing. You know what? I always say it and write it. The only time I'll say that it's true is there's always a couple weeks in the dog days of summer where there really literally is not much coming out. Camp hasn't started yet. Like, you're past the big recruiting window that typically comes in the summer. Like, there's usually a couple of weeks there where it's slow, but man, it's always something here.
No doubt. I think, just looking at the stuff that's going on today, the way I see it is, here's still, again, the psychology of it, the emotion that's running off of the championship game, and the fact that we lose a piece of the puzzle that we had in Golden. And now we're sitting here wondering, okay, well, who's going to fill that spot? And a lot of us were thinking that it would be from within, and the fear of losing that person at our DB coach. And now it's someone that we haven't heard that name in Ash in a while, right? Like, I mean, I remember hearing about him back in the day, but now I'm like, oh, that guy. I'm like, okay, why? I would just want to know why. Whereas what would make us feel more comfortable is a more relevant name like that of a Knowles or something in that same position, right? So it tweaks people, because we're sitting there wondering, well, why aren't we getting somebody who's more relevant today? Whereas, if you look in and like kind of what Andrew was talking about, more the deeper sense into it, and, obviously what the coaching staff and the, everybody's talking to this guy in Ash and trying to figure out, like, well, who he is, what he brings to the table, what he offers. They're going to know a lot more than we are. But it is hard as a fan base, because we're very reactionary. And so we're like, wait, well, who is this and why? So unless you have that deeper understanding like that of someone like your previous caller and Andrew understands like the ins and outs and whatnot, it's going to be a harder sell to the fan base.
Yeah, it's man, it's just, here's the thing. It's like this could all end up only really three different ways, right? With the GM hire and the DC hire, you could end up in a better place, you could end up in a worse place, or you could end up pretty much where you were, but just with some different faces. I'm kind of open to the idea of Freeman retooling some of this now that he's further into the job and has more confidence and a little experience. I'm totally open to him tweaking some things. I'm fine with that, but you got to make high quality hires, and these are critical positions, and you really got to do your vetting and know what you're looking for and make sure you're on the same page.
No doubt, absolutely. And as long as everybody is on that same page, we were talking about that on the last show. Getting that leadership established. And this is, they're wasting no time, so that's good. And it looks like they are making a decision and they feel comfortable with it. I don't think they would just make some, kind of like an emotional reactionary decision to hire somebody. I think they obviously do the deep dive and figure out who it is that it's going to be. So I feel good about that. I also want to remind myself as well as everybody else, it's like every year I look at the roster, right? And I say to myself, how in the world are we going to replace a Drew Tranquil? How are we going to replace a Manti Te'o? How are we going to replace Brady Quinn? How are we going to replace? I would say it every single time, like, oh man, now it's a rebuilding year. And then somebody else steps up and you're just like, wow, this guy is legit. And it's just one of those reminders that I think we just need to be patient with the process, even though, again, fan short for fanatic, right? So we're fanatical about this. And we just need to remember that whoever's coming in, hopefully, it's not going to work all the time, but hopefully it's going to be a step up and that we learn from.
Let me ask you this.
You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you this. Am I the only one that when they said that Bowden's leaving, or Bowden, whatever. When I think of Bowden, I think of Bobby Bowden. I never want to think of Bobby Bowden. So I say Bowden. I say Bowden so I don't have to think of that guy who got the going away retirement gift championship over Notre Dame. Dude, listen. My initial thought was, this is not the end of the world. I do not feel like the Freeman era recruiting is nearly as good as I thought it was going to be. You're not in the top 10 every year, and that's where I need the Freeman era recruiting to be. Every year is finishing the rankings in the top 10. You are not doing that. So I am, if you were the number 5 or 6 recruiting every year under Freeman and it was just cooking, I would be like, man, that's about as high as Notre Dame's going to get just because of the way we're able to recruit or whatever in the numbers. That sucks. I do not have that reaction to Chad leaving because to me, for all of the accomplishments in the Freeman era, the recruiting is not on the top of the list. They are not recruiting as well as I thought a Freeman-led program would be, and I'm open to maybe getting different eyeballs in this thing. Is that just me? Am I stupid for this? They're averaging 12 or 13, 12, 13, 14 in the rankings. That's not good enough for the Freeman era. I don't love that.
Totally agree. Johnny boy, you're right. Spot on. You're spot on. I totally agree with it. And when I saw the news, I'm like, wait, who did we lose? I'm like, oh, our general manager? Where's he going? SC. There's the door, pal. Get on out. Good. Go. You want the more money? You want to go do that? I understand the business side of things. I understand if somebody's going to throw you $4 million or $5 million, whatever the crazy numbers are for, all these positions. Understood. Go do whatever you're going to do. The fact that it went to USC makes me spiteful as it does for a lot of people.
Yeah.
The whole Michigan thing, same thing.
Yeah.
If you went to Ohio State, same thing. If you went to Nebraska, rad.
Yeah.
Hey, best of luck, buddy.
Good use of rad. I never hear that anymore. Good job. That's a winner. I like that. I haven't heard rad in a long time. Leave it to the California guy to say rad. I love it. That's great.
80s kid, man.
Totally tubular, bro.
Oh, completely. Gonna go hit the wave. Never surfed. Everybody, they say, oh, you're from California. I'm like, yeah. No, how's the surfing? I'm like, I have no idea. Never done it.
That's great.
But I do agree with you. And I think, again, you're spot on as far as like, if we were like that 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 spot on the recruiting trail every single year, it's like, whoa, what are we losing here? But man, there's something going to be better. And I know they always say the grass isn't greener on the other side. Okay, cool, or whatever. But this is going to be for the better. We're going to find someone else. Now let's start catapulting. We talked about that on the last call. Don't lose momentum. This is part of it. It doesn't mean that you can't lose people that are already on the staff. It just means that you need to be able to bolster your staff in the best positions possible. And that might be with the people that we currently have, as well as a mixture of those who aren't on the staff yet.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
Yeah, it's man, and I agree with what Pat said, the first caller. You know, some of these changes are normal and it's cyclical, and what happens at all these programs, I just think you had a good run here. People are in a weird mood, and they're not necessarily as open to big changes as you normally would be if you had like a rougher season or lost 3 games. People are going to be a lot more open to you know, what different changes. So I don't know, man. I'm open to some of this, and we'll see what happens. Anything else, my friend? Hit the waves.
Hit the waves. Yeah, I'm just going to spend my day watching Saved by the Bell and, go surf later. I mean, it is what it is.
Oh, man. Kelly Kapowski.
So, I think I would say this, but I would say, John, that stay optimistic. And even though there's going to be a lot of reactions coming through, there's going to be a lot of different things, we are not going to know the finishing product to this until that, the season starts. And as far as like recruiting and all that, again, it takes time, right? When Marcus Freeman got hired, it takes time. He had to use his guys as well as Brian Kelly's guys. Now it's like his crew, right? He's building this the way he wants to. He wants to mold it a certain way. Let's see where he takes this. And if we put our trust in him, which we all seem to be saying across the board, that he is the guy to be our leader at the tip of the spear, so to speak, well, then let's just follow his lead. If this is who he thinks it is, okay, let's go with it. And I really hope, as we all do, that it works. But it's not going to be come week 1 in Miami as far as like with the general manager and that kind of stuff. It will be as far as like a defensive coordinator, and we'll find that out pretty quick. And so we just have to like kind of see how that goes.
Yeah,
but be patient with it, and let's get the pieces in play, man.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And there's always a bunch of reactions, and it's going to be really, really interesting. Hey, man, thanks for the call. Really appreciate it as always. Enjoy the rest of your Monday.
You got it, John.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, buddy.
Thanks. Have a good one. We'll go back to the calls. I need a little break again. Sorry, guys, man. These sinuses are killing me. And then we went from 0 degrees to like 30 or 40. My head is bumping, bro. I got to tell you guys, I like the energy on this. I like the energy on this show. Okay, let's address something real quick. Oh boy. Couple things, and we'll go back to the final bank of callers. Might have to speed it up a little bit, but I want to get all you guys in. SPF. John's open to the idea. Yeah, you have no choice. People are leaving. I have a choice how I react to them leaving. And it could be, I'm devastated. We're never going to be any good again because these guys are leaving. Or I could say, now you're in a position where you could end up in a better spot. Like, I'm just saying, after they're leaving, are you devastated and miserable about it? Or are you hopeful? That is in my control, not them leaving, but my reaction to it. Oh boy. Here we go. I'm going to try and maturely navigate this. $2 holler from Caden the Man 614. He is back. Thank you for the $2. Rodney, Ohio State owns Notre Dame. Another $2 holler from Caden the Man. As a Yankees fan, the White Sox suck. You don't have to explain to me that the White Sox suck, but I'm going to explain a couple things to you. Number one is you have been on hold for over an hour and a half calling into this show. You shot your shot last week, and you are not going to take up one more minute on my airwaves. I know your number now, and I know your number. You're not coming on the show again. So if you want to wait on hold every day for an hour and a half, feel free to do so, but you're not coming on the air. You had your shot, you blew it, and you're not calling again. I will accept your $4 though. I will accept your $4, but you're going to have to get creative if you want to get on this show. You're going to have to use your mom's cell phone number. You're going to have to get a Walter White burner where nobody knows your number or whatever, because you're not calling in here and getting airtime again. Here's the next thing. And I'm going to give some tough advice and then some honest advice. Caden the man. You know what somebody who's the man never has in their title? That they're the man. It's like all those Twitter accounts where these guys say that they're in their profile, I'm an alpha male. No alpha male needs to put that they're an alpha male in their profile. So you saying you're the man doesn't mean you're the man. It makes people think you're not the man. Like nobody that is the man has to say they're the man. Everybody just knows they're the man. Nobody that's an alpha needs to announce they're an alpha. They walk in the room and everybody knows they're the alpha. That is how everybody's been in a locker room or in a high school or in college. You know who the alpha male is, and nobody needs to say it because you know it. Here's the other thing, man. Here's the other thing. This is honest to God advice from somebody who's been on a YouTube journey from 0 subscribers to 12,000 or whatever it is to making this a full-time writing career. If it's true that you have 6 subscribers, which is what's being reported, that people looked you up and you have like 6 subscribers, my honest to God advice is there are no shortcuts to growing. And you think trolling the bigger accounts like me and Uncle Lou is going to be a shortcut to catapult your growth. That's not going to happen, man. I'm giving you honest advice. If you have 6 subscribers, you need to work on your own content, your own ideas, find your own lane in this, and you need to build and grow on your own. You are trying to take shortcuts thinking if I could get in with one of these bigger accounts and get attention there, people will come to me and then I'll grow. You're not going to be able to cheat the system that way. If you're serious about this, you need to quit trying to jump on everybody else's stuff, and you need to really grow your own thing and find your own ideas and your own thing. And it's a complete lack of awareness to try and go after bigger accounts. That's not how YouTube works. That's not how YouTube works, man. The number of subscribers you have is your credibility level in a given niche or whatever. And if you only have a handful, you just have no credibility to go after bigger accounts. That's not how it's going to work. Look at this. I don't think you get it, man. I don't think you get it. You're struggling here. All right. I tried to give you honest advice, but it is a complete lack of self-awareness. It is. You keep donating, though. I'll take the money. That's $6, man. Get myself a coffee. It is, yeah, and I haven't banned the guy. It is, I'm just telling you, man, it's a complete lack of awareness to think that you with a handful of subscribers are going to like blow in and take on these big accounts and win and grow a lot from it. It's just not going to happen, man. You got to make your own thing, not try and grab onto people that are already there. It's just not, it's not going to happen. I'm telling you, it never would have entered my mind to do that when I barely had any following, because you have no credibility. The amount of followers you have here indicates your credibility in the space. And if you're just growing, you need to do your own thing, man, and build your own thing, not try and grab onto other accounts and make a name for yourself that way. It's just not going to happen. But man, I tried to give you some advice. You can keep giving me. You can keep donating me the money if you want. I'll take your money. I'm just trying to help you out. Trying to give you some advice. Oh, I tried. I'm literally trying. But to think that I'm going to put him on the air again is, I just don't think you're living in reality, man. I just don't think you're living in reality of how this all works and how to grow. So whatever, man. I'm trying to, it averages out to $1. It averages out to $1 for every subscriber you got. Thanks a lot, man. I do appreciate it very much. 304, welcome to the show. What's going on?
Ain't worried about them.
Hello?
Hey, man, you can get hurt quick like that.
Are you doing work in an underground well? I'm having trouble hearing you. That guy waited forever, and then I put him on the air, and it sounds like he's like Lassie, the show Lassie, where Timmy's stuck in the bottom of a well, and Lassie's got to dig him out. I feel bad. That guy waited over an hour, and I can't even take his call. My main man, Martinez. If you're on, I only got like a few callers left. You're going to be on the air if you're on hold. What's up, my main man?
Hey, Johnny, how are you?
What's up, buddy?
Not much. Just trying to get Monday going, man. How are you?
I'm okay, man. Everybody's talking about the changes around Notre Dame. New DC coming, a new GM coming. What do you make of it?
There's been a lot of good points, and I'm trying to stay positive too, man, about everything. I've had kind of a rough run this last year, so I'm trying to be a good boy, man. But so I want to stay positive. I think what Andrew and Pat said in the caller from last, the California kid, I think they had some really good points. As far as Bowden, I didn't realize that. As far as I forgot that he's trying to get Michigan. It's almost in a sense like he's every off season he's playing that role so he can get more money. I mean, because how ironically you go to our biggest rivals. I mean, it's not like you're like a Utah or like a or like a Baylor.
And I don't know if that is. I don't know if a part of that is these teams that hate Notre Dame are targeting a Notre Dame guy and that's a part of it, or if this is just the way it worked out. But when it's Michigan one cycle and USC the next, it makes you wonder what is going on here, right? And so I don't know.
Yeah, and if it makes you wonder if that's his strategy to try to get more out of more money out of the situation, you know what I mean? So I don't know. As far as like Golden leaving, we all seen the writing on the wall. You know, it seemed like, you know, I guess you can argue that we had 1 star, 5 stars to 14 5 stars. I guess you could, and I guess, you know, Gary Anderson said it best. I don't know if you remember him. He coached at Utah State, then he went up to Wisconsin and coached. Gary Anderson said it best. I remember hearing him talk, and I met him. He said, if you got 30 athletes compared to 28 athletes, man, you're just going to win the numbers game. That's just the way it is. So I don't know if that's what happened at the national title, but our defense didn't look like it once did. I think, for me personally, I think the boys were just tired. They looked sluggish. They looked a little slower. But, I mean, at the end, they really, you know, we got within a touchdown. So I don't know, man. I kind of seen Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler get in. So I'm saying, like, is Pat's thought of addition by subtraction true? Maybe. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, so losing some of these like I said when we first met, man, every time I see players leave that put on the blue and gold, man, it always breaks my heart. You know, because they were in the trenches there and they're actually the ones battling. So, you know, I'm kind of at a loss for some words, but maybe these things need to happen. Like Pat said, addition by subtraction, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm definitely open to the idea that you can recalibrate entering the mid phase of the Freeman era and find a different way to do some of these things. Like, it's just, I don't know, man, the GM thing, especially, I am not going to sit here and cry We weren't even in the top 10 in recruiting. Like, I'm not acting like he and the recruiting operation have reached my expectations and hopes for the Freeman era. They have not. And that makes me open to maybe getting some different eyes on this. And I mean that.
No, and that's true. But ultimately remember that the coach is the one that's going after these players, though. Like Pat said, this is my vision. This is what I need to go after. And it's like you said, it's reversed. The GM answers the recruiting coordinator, which is really what he is the one that answers to the coach, right? And I know Gilmore was big on Ash, but you know, here at Utah, where Urban really kind of made his mark here in Utah, those players weren't his players. Remember, he was only here for 2 years. He went 10-2 the first year, and then he had that amazing season for us for Utah. But those dudes, like I knew half of those dudes on that team, you know, because I played high school ball with them, and you know, Morgan Scally was going to be, which is Utah's defensive coordinator. Morgan Scally was a stud in high school. I mean, he was basically Mr. Football, man. Like, the team he was on, man, that's why they created the mercy rule here in Utah, because that team, that high school team was 40-0 in the first half, and they're like, we got to keep the clock running, man. This is going to be brutal. But, you know, so I don't know about that Ash fellow coming in, you know, because also remember, Urban's been out of the game for 10 years, man. You know, 10 years. Football, the landscape of college football has changed just within these last 3 years. You know what I mean? Because of NIL and the portal. I mean, look at Dabo. Dabo, like I say over and over, he's the SEC killer, man. And Dabo hasn't been able to compete the way he once did, you know, with those Trevor Lawrence days and those Deshaun Watson days. But I mean, he did get into he has been doing it without NIL. So, and you know, like I mentioned, I got a lot of respect for Dabo. So I know. I mean, the one great thing that I didn't like what Andrew said about Ash is that he's a relentless recruiter. And I think, you know what? Do you remember when Urban stole Notre Dame's running back coach? The one that went to Colorado. What's his name? I had his info, but the year after they lost the national title, Urban went after Notre Dame's running back coach.
Alfred? You talking about Alfred?
Yes. Yeah. The black guy, right? He was I've heard he was a relentless coordinator. And look what happens when he steals him. You know, he ends up winning the national title. I'm not saying it was just because of him, but I think in general, you have to bring in your coaches, like Andrew said, that are relentless coordinator. And like how you say all the time, that can relate to these kids, you know, in a sense, or kind of mentor these kids, you know, because this is what I will say about Freeman. You know, he sets the tone and the example of what young men should be, man. And I say that over and over because you look at Urban's track record of all his players, man. You know what I mean? Like they're basically on the road to Renee's life, man, heading up the road, you know, to spend 2, 3, 4 years in the University of Penitentiary. You know what I mean? Because you look at all those players at Florida that got in trouble. You know, Notre Dame's not going to go. Notre Dame's not going to go for things like that.
I just think it's more about the work ethic, right? Like not about what guys you're targeting, but more about like the relentless work ethic that Urban required to do everything. And so I don't know, man. I'm open to some of this, and maybe people are going to say that's just me coping or whatever, but I really am open to new ways to do these things, and I'm and we'll see what happens. You got to hire the right people, but I'm open to some changes.
No, yeah, Johnny, and I agree, man. I'll just end with this. I think it's super important that we do hit the right DC, whether it be Mickens, Ash, whoever, because honestly, I'm not too impressed with what Denbrock's doing. I mean, his plays didn't look no different than Tommy Reese's, and I know I say that because I've always liked Tommy Reese because I said, you know, the fact that he didn't leave after he lost his job twice at Notre Dame, I always respect that. But I think the key important is what DC we hire, because that's what held us together in the last few years. Because between Parker, Tommy, and Denbrock, I didn't see much different in play calling. You know what I mean?
Well, it's I I mean, we'll see what we get with that. And a lot of that's going to have to do with who the next quarterback is. And we haven't even gotten to that debate yet. My main man, hey, thanks for giving me a call, man. Get your Monday started. Appreciate you calling. Yeah.
Hey, Johnny, thank you, man. Have a good luck, man. Try not to stress out too much, buddy. Get to Florida. I love you, buddy. Onward, Notre Dame.
Onward, Notre Dame, man. I love that, man. I love that, dude. Oh boy. All right. We got we're going to do 3 more calls. 949-386, and then we'll finish with 559 up on the line. Andrew Gilmore says he's reading that Ash mistreated people at Rutgers. You could argue Rutgers mistreats everybody who goes there to try and win. 949 up on the line, 386 next. What's going on?
Hey, John, it's been a long time since we spoke. It was great to meet your brother here in South Florida, and hope you got the video and you got a little gift coming for your daughter.
You know what?
Well,
I did, man. Thank you so much. I'll tell you, when we were all together recently for one of the other playoff games, my brother brought up that video, put it on the TV and brought it up. And then we gave my daughter the pom-poms and stuff. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
absolutely. I hope you enjoyed the scalp as well.
Yeah, that was nice. Thank you, man. That was really, really thoughtful. And you know what, man? My brother was truly surprised. There was that many people that swung by, even though I wasn't there. Like, it ended up being a really, really good thing to do. I'm glad everybody was involved.
Absolutely. It met some great people, so thank you. Somebody during the playoffs said you are a voice of the people. I think while that's true, I think what's even more significant or equally as significant, you give the people a voice. So thank you for that. I'll end with this. How about letting the defensive kids determine who they want their coordinator to be? That seemed to be a unique little trend that has worked so far.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, how do you balance? Well, isn't it different though with Freeman getting that job and the players having input because he was already in the building, right? Like, because he was already in the building, that's different. But like, if you're looking for traits or the kind of coaching, I get that. But like, I don't know how much these guys know all these candidates, to even have an opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you on that, but I also say there are a couple of guys in-house that if they really want them, maybe some of that is happening behind closed doors. You don't know.
I think, man, everybody, it feels like, would like to keep Mickens around, but is there a reason Freeman isn't just going to Mickens and being like, okay, you're the next up behind Al and you're the DC? Like, is that curious to anybody? Like, I'm just wondering if that's curious to anybody, because I thought that was kind of the plan, and maybe it's appearing that it isn't, and then you risk maybe losing Mickens, a good recruiter and a good developer who's getting that group to play good in the secondary. So I don't know how this is going to play out. Is Mickens beyond being open to being a co-DC? I don't know.
For all we know, maybe he made his decision long before Al made the final departure, and he's just playing out the process.
Yeah, that could be. It's going to be interesting, and let's make no mistake about it. These are important decisions, and so you got to get them right. If you're Freeman, you can't afford to fall back in the beginning and the middle part of your tenure. So you got to get it right, and you got to vet everything and make sure everything's a good fit. And I guess we'll just see how it goes.
Well, on my way out, I'll say that there's about 218 days left until kickoff. So let's go Irish.
There you go.
I'll keep listening to the show. Thank you so much for all you do, and God bless everybody.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate it. Yeah, that dude met up with my brother after the tailgate in Miami for the game, and he brought my daughter a couple pom-poms from the game and everything in this nice band. It was just really, really thoughtful. But yeah, I think you got to be careful when you start asking all these kids what they want and all this. It's really, really different. Saying that the players wanted Freeman, I think that is a different discussion because he was already in the building. That changes everything. The fact that Freeman was already operating in the building day-to-day working with these kids. Getting their opinion on that is very, very different than anybody outside that these guys don't have experience with. That's very, very different. That's a dangerous thing to me. I don't know how I feel about that. Really, that's different. 386, what's going on?
Hey, John, how are you, man? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. I'm good, man. I'm just, there's a lot of changes going on, and the only constant in life and football is change, and we're just navigating it. What do you make of the discussion today?
Yeah, I think the energy definitely is coming up, as the further away we get from the game, which is good to see. I will say,
dude, can I jump in on that? Can I jump in on that real quick? Yeah. I felt the air all leave the balloon for a handful of days with everyone. Everyone was exhausted. The fans, just the Notre Dame media, I felt everyone was dragging ass, and all the air was let out of the balloon with a rough ending. And I feel where you feel. People are starting to get their legs back under them, but I was whacked out for a handful of days.
I think everybody would agree. You've got such a good pulse on the fan base. It's cool seeing it through your show. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see how many people are on each side of this. You put my comment up there. I think no matter what, this is a pretty big deal for Freeman. And it kind of seems like every single offseason that he's always had some sort of major decision to make, and there's always a lot riding on it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely do. And you need to hope that this time around, Freeman has kind of some experience. Now he's not a rookie. He's going into year 4. Maybe Freeman has a better idea of what he wants and what he wants to avoid and what he wants it to feel like. And maybe some of the things he thought he needed to start his tenure have changed now that he has more experience. Like the dynamic has shifted here. It's very interesting.
Totally. And just looking up a little bit about Chris Ash, he has a ton of secondary, like safety and cornerback group experience. So, I mean, just putting two things together, I still stand by we need to keep Mickens no matter what. But is Freeman thinking, well, if I bring in this guy and he doesn't want to be a co-DC, should we account for somebody possibly or Mickens possibly leaving? I mean, there's just a lot up in the air with this.
Yeah, there is. I don't know, man. I think a lot of people thought Mickens would be the next logical choice and there wouldn't be this big search and that he would just slide in there after Al. And that's not happening for a reason. Maybe it ends up being him and this is all just due diligence. I don't know that. And even if it was that, I don't blame Freeman. You probably should look around even if you think you have your guy. So I don't know. You just got to trust that Freeman knows what he's looking for.
And that's kind of what my comment went back to. I trust him, but I also realize, and I think everybody does, Freeman included, he can make a mistake. It just can't be this. Like you've said it before in shows all the time. This defense is the backbone of this program. Like we can't have that take a step back. Like we've been talking about continuously here the last 7 to 10 days. We've built momentum. Now it is simply a matter of sustaining it. We have to hit the ground running no matter what happens this offseason.
Yeah, that's the big thing because, okay, it's like you got beat by a really terrific roster in Ohio State. Nobody's denying that, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But if you start trending backwards in year 4, then it's like, okay, that was a one good year shot, luck shot in the dark, and you had your little run, and now it's little old Notre Dame regressing to be out of the playoff again or whatever. No. So now you got to hope Freeman has a better idea what he needs to get this a little further along than you were when you fell short to Ohio State. And you just got to hope Freeman has that vision and he goes and finds people that match it. I don't know what else to say.
Absolutely. I just saw BBG's comment.
Isn't that funny?
I'm sorry, dude. I got a deviated septum. I don't know what you want me to do.
It is funny, though. It does sound like that. I could see how that is. Yeah. Long lost twins. I get Gilmored from every angle, the beginning of the show and the end.
I love Andrew's contributions to the group, though. Very, very well thought out guy. You know, the only time I didn't like him or like his comments were, I think, leading up to, I don't know, one show was just bad. But Andrew's always a stand-up guy, always good stuff he brings to the table here. So that's a hilarious comment by BBG. But I'll let you get to it, man. 3 hours in. Thanks for having me on, and we'll chat with you later.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate it. Have a good start to your week. What a nice guy. We will, the man, the self-proclaimed man has hung up. He is no longer waiting on hold. We'll end it with 559 up on the line in case you weren't awake yet. What's up, baby? Oh, come on. Don't do this to me. Last caller of the day. Come on, man. That's it. 559. He's not on the line. 559 is not on the line. All right, you guys. That's going to be it. I like the energy on this show. I like the exchange of ideas. I like a bunch of different people looking at it a bunch of different ways. I like all of that. And there's rumors. And again, I'm going to finish with this. I don't know the truth, and I'm not going to act like I do know the truth. And anything I hear, it's one side of it. There's more than one side to every story. Yes, Patreon tonight. I think Mike's feeling better from being down with the flu. And so we're going to do the Patreon live tonight, planning on 7:00 Central. I'll put out a link soon. And so I don't know, you guys. This is interesting. Change is the only constant. Thanks, Sly. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks for all the donations. We'll go live with Goolsby. We'll see what his thoughts are on any of this or what Notre Dame should be looking for or not. Really energetic show on a Monday. I'm feeling the energy start to come back after everybody's Irish depression. Thanks to everybody here, everybody donating, everybody calling. I really, really love it, man. Have a good Monday, you guys. We'll see you on Patreon later.